May is Skin Cancer Awareness Month, and the time my friend Tamara from Tamara's Timeless Beauty and myself do our annual sunscreen roundup. I believe we have done this now for the past 5, maybe even 6 years. And a couple of years ago, Tamara was able to come visit me, and we got to do it together in person, which was a ton of fun. But we started doing these annual sunscreen roundups so that between the two of us, we could test even more SPFs for you. And for this particular video, between Tamara and myself, we tested over 30 SPFs. In fact, I have over 20 SPFs in front of me on my desk. So let's get right into it before this video gets forever long. But really briefly, I think at this point we can all agree that sunscreen is a very important step in our morning skincare routine. But one thing many of us overlook is how much SPF is needed to get the sun protection promised on the label. So to get the protection promised on the label, we have to use a 1/4 teaspoon of SPF for the face alone, another 1/4 teaspoon for the neck and chest. And that is a lot of SPF. And oftentimes, especially when using mineral SPFs, that ends up looking not too pretty. But in advertising, you will often see somebody taking a tiny amount of SPF, rubbing it in and showing you how gorgeous it looks. Were they to use an actual 1/4 teaspoon of that SPF, it might be a completely different story. However, Tamara and I are going to show you what a 1/4 teaspoon of each of the SPFs we tested actually looks like. Like I said, I have over 20 SPFs in front of me. Most of them are mineral, tinted as well as untinted, but I also have a few chemical SPFs. Not all of them were winners, and I'm just going to very briefly glaze over the ones I would definitely not repurchase. However, if you have a different opinion, if I absolutely hate an SPF but you love it, or if I love one and you hate it, please let us know down below. We are all different. We have different skin, different preferences. We live in different climates. For reference, I have fairly normal skin, so it's not too dry nor oily. And currently I live in San Diego, California, where year-round we have a semi-Mediterranean climate. So personally, I don't need an overly moisturizing SPF. So again, just because something doesn't work for me, doesn't mean it's not going to work for you, or vice versa. So again, if you have a different opinion, please share down below. But the first SPF I would not repurchase, and this is probably going to be an unpopular opinion, is the Color Science Flex. This is a broad spectrum SPF with an SPF of 50 and a PA rating of 4+. This is a very popular SPF, and I did try it a couple of years ago. Back then I wasn't wild about it, but I thought part of that was that I had gotten the wrong shade. I did repurchase it this year because they came out with a new shade, and I thought maybe it is a better match. However, it isn't. Let me show you real fast. It comes out white, and it is supposed to be self-adjusting to your skin tone. However, no matter what shade I have tried, it does not match my skin tone. Even if it did, for me personally, it provides way too much coverage. I like minimal coverage, and this to me is way too cakey and makeup-y. And as you can see, it does not adjust to my skin tone. Now, if you like a lot of coverage and you can manage for this to actually adjust to your skin tone, then you might love it. Like I said, it is a very popular SPF. Unfortunately, it doesn't work for me, and I will give up now. I will not repurchase it, no matter what shades they come out with. The next SPF I will not repurchase is the One Skin. This is the OS01 Face SPF, broad spectrum SPF 30+, and it has a PA rating of 3+. And by the way, if you're not familiar with the PA rating, A PA rating in sunscreen measures a product's ability to block UVA rays, with 1 plus offering some UVA protection and 4 pluses offering extremely high UVA protection. I did purchase the original OneSkin, I believe a couple of years ago, when they only had 1 shade, and it was way too dark. However, this year they came out with what they call a light to medium shade, and I gave it another try. However, for my complexion, what they call a light to medium shade is still way too dark. I do like the way it feels. I like the minimal coverage it gives and the somewhat glowy finish it leaves. But again, for my complexion, the light to medium shade is still way too dark. And on top of that, it also oxidizes. So I will not repurchase that one either. The next SPF I will not repurchase is the Live Tinted or Tinted Live, I'm not sure what's first, Hueguard SPF of 50. This does come in quite a few different shades, which is nice. And I may have gotten the wrong shade for my complexion. But shade aside, to me this feels extremely watery and slippery, and no matter how much I rub, it does not want to sink into my skin. It seems to just sit on top of my skin without ever really drying down. So I will not repurchase this one. Another SPF I won't repurchase is another Live Tinted or Tinted Live, and it is the Glowtion. This has an SPF of 50 and is a mineral SPF. By the way, all of the SPFs I have shared so far have been mineral SPFs. Like I said, most of the SPFs I have in front of me are mineral, but I will let you know once I transition to the chemical SPFs. So this one comes in 2 shades, not too many options, but shade aside, while this one doesn't feel as slippery and wet as this one, it feels, at least to me, somewhat greasy. It takes a while to rub in, but even once it is sunken in, it continues to feel somewhat greasy. It's not bad. It's a bit better than this one, at least on my skin, but it's not great. Both of these also, again, provide too much coverage for my taste, so I won't repurchase this one either. And then the last one I won't repurchase is a non-tinted mineral SPF, and it is by Dr. Bryant. This has an SPF of 50, and what's nice about this one is that it contains plankton extract, which is a DNA repair enzyme. It is a non-tinted SPF, and surprisingly it leaves very little white cast. However, for me personally, this is way too greasy, and it also contains several essential oils, so it smells very parfumated. I don't need my sunscreen to smell like perfume, and the fragrance also irritates my eyes, so I will not repurchase this one either. And I actually have another one I won't repurchase, and it is the Tower 28. This is the Sunny Days Broad Spectrum SPF of 30. Again, this does come in quite a few different shades, which is nice. Again, I may have gotten the wrong shade, but shade aside, this provides way too much coverage for me, doesn't sink in easily, and once it finally did sink in, it felt really heavy and suffocating on my skin. I actually couldn't wait to wash this one off, so definitely won't repurchase this one either. Now let's talk about some SPFs I may repurchase, and I would have for sure repurchased just a couple of years ago, because even just a couple of years ago, it was quite challenging to find cosmetically elegant SPFs. So a couple of years ago, I would have been incredibly impressed with these SPFs. And they are all beautiful, but they're just not quite perfect for my skin or my complexion, but they might be perfect for one of you. So the first one is the Prequel Sun Barrier Mineral Sunscreen Broad Spectrum SPF of 50 with a PA rating of 4 pluses. This contains 18% zinc oxide, and of course zinc oxide as well as titanium dioxide are the 2 mineral filters available to us in the United States. It also contains iron oxides, and iron oxides help to block blue light, which is often the cause of pigmentation issues like melasma. On top of the zinc oxide and iron oxides, it also contains, as they call it, bioactive antioxidant compounds. This has a beautiful texture. It feels quite light and silky, sinks in beautifully. It is easy to apply enough of. It leaves a nice glowy finish with minimal coverage. This would be the perfect SPF, especially since 1.7 ounces sells for around $22. The only problem for me personally with this SPF is that the tint is just the slightest bit too light. Aside from that, this is a beautiful SPF. Next, I have the MD Ray Mineral Fix. This contains 5.5% zinc oxide and 10% titanium dioxide. It also contains iron oxides, as well as hyaluronic acid, ascorbopalmitate, and vitamin E. This is a nice SPF. It does take a little while to rub in, especially when using a full quarter teaspoon. But what I will oftentimes do is apply my sunscreen in layers. So I will use about 1/8 of a teaspoon, rub that in, let it sink in for a little while, and then apply the rest. So this eventually does sink in. It takes a little while, but it does sink in. It does not settle in my hairline nor my fine lines. By the way, neither does the Prequel. The only problem I have with this SPF, depending on what skincare I wear underneath, it oxidizes quite badly. So some days it looks absolutely beautiful, and then other days I look like an Oompa Loompa. So I have not repurchased it because of that. It's also not cheap. 1.7 ounces sells for, let me look at my notes, $56. Next, I have the Epicutis Lipid Shield. This contains 21% non-nano zinc oxide, as well as iron oxides. It also contains their proprietary TSC technology, which they claim calms UV-induced inflammation, protects collagen, and repairs the skin barrier, while shielding against sun damage. This has a beautiful texture. It feels very silky, very elegant. It sinks in beautifully. It's easy to apply enough of. It leaves a nice glow with, I would say, minimal coverage. The only problem I have with this SPF, well, I have several, but as far as the finish, on me at least, it leaves somewhat of a metallic hue. Also, 1.7 ounces sells for $90. That's a lot for an SPF. Lastly, while the packaging is beautiful, it's not too practical. It's quite heavy and big, and I want to be able to just throw my SPF in my purse or my backpack, and this one is too heavy and big to do so. The next one is the Ranavat Brightening Mineral Sunscreen with an SPF of 50. This contains 12.5% zinc oxide as well as iron oxides. It also contains saffron alongside, as they advertise, 20 plus Ayurvedic adaptogens to soothe the skin. It feels more like skincare than sunscreen. It is very, very hydrating, and because of that, it does take a little while to rub in. However, if applied in layers, it is easy to apply enough of. It leaves a nice glowy finish, a bit of a golden finish, but for me personally, this is too hydrating. If you have really dry skin, and if you're looking for something that does feel like skincare rather than sunscreen, you might love this. But it's not cheap either. 1.7 ounces sells for $65. Next, we have the Bloomeffects Tulip Sunscreen Serum with an SPF of 50. This contains 12% non-nano zinc oxide as well as iron oxides. It also contains Bloomeffects' unique Dutch tulip complex, which is rich in antioxidants. This, like the Ranavat I just shared, really feels more like skincare than SPF. It is very hydrating, and because of that, it does take a little while to rub in. But again, if applied in layers, it is easy to apply enough of. It leaves a very glowy finish with, I would say, medium coverage. It is beautiful, but for me right now, it is way too hydrating, just like the Ranavat. If you have dry skin, you might love either one of these. Now, they did just come out with new packaging. I purchased this a while ago. They did just come out with different packaging as well as a new shade, but I don't believe they changed the formulation. 1.7 ounces sells for $65. Next, we have Merit, the Uniform, Tinted SPF 45. This contains 14.5% zinc oxide as well as iron oxide, and it comes in over 15 shades. It sinks in easily. However, at least on my skin, once completely sunken in, it does feel a bit tacky, and it provides way too much coverage for my taste. This is a very popular SPF, and I have to try applying just a tiny bit on top of a non-tinted SPF. I would imagine it would look beautiful that way, but for me personally, again, using a 1/4 teaspoon provides way too much coverage. 1.7 ounces sells for $38. Next, we have the Skinmedica Essential Defense Broad Spectrum SPF of 32. This contains 5% titanium dioxide and 6% zinc oxide. It is suitable for sensitive and post-procedure skin and contains antioxidants such as caffeine. It sinks in beautifully. It is easy to apply enough of. It leaves a semi-glowy finish with minimal coverage. It's a beautiful SPF, but for me personally, it's a bit too tan and it tends to oxidize as well. 1.7 ounces sells for $40. Next, we have the Elisabeth Arden City Smart Broad Spectrum SPF of 50. This contains 6.2% titanium dioxide and 5.6% zinc oxide, as well as iron oxides. It also contains DNA repair enzymes, as well as antioxidants. It feels quite wet and slippery, making it hard to rub in. It does sink in eventually, and the tint is almost perfect for my complexion. However, it does leave a semi-matte finish, and I prefer a glowy finish. I really wanted to love this because of the added DNA repair enzymes, but I don't like the semi-matte finish, and 1.3 ounces sells for $79, so that's quite steep. Next, we have an untinted mineral SPF, and it is the Hero Force Shield SPF of 30. This contains 17.53% zinc oxide, as well as antioxidants and postbiotics. It is untinted, but has a subtle green tint, which helps to balance out red, inflamed, or acne-prone skin. It has a beautiful consistency, very light, sinks in easily, it's easy to apply enough of. It does leave the slightest bit of a white cast, at least on my complexion, and it also settles a bit in my hairline. However, 1.7 ounces sells for $12, which is a great price. So I can see myself repurchasing this one to use on my neck and chest, because as you can see, my neck and chest are always red, old sun damage, and I like that this balances out red. So for $12, I will probably repurchase this to use on my neck and chest. Next, we have the Jan or Jan, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, Marini Physical Protectant Broad Spectrum SPF of 45. This contains 8% zinc oxide and 6% titanium dioxide, as well as iron oxides, and it is water resistant for up to 80 minutes. This has a beautiful texture, very light and fluffy, sinks in beautifully. It is easy to apply enough of, but when I purchased this one, I should have read what it says about it, because it does say it contains a oil control system designed to absorb excess oil, leaving the face matte throughout the day. So this is perfect for somebody with oily skin who wants a matte finish. 1.7 ounces sells for $63. So these are the SPFs, like I said, I would have been totally impressed with just a couple of years ago. They are beautiful, but they're just not quite perfect for my skin or my complexion. But now let's talk about some SPFs I absolutely love, have already repurchased some of them numerous times. There's really only one in here that I haven't repurchased yet, but definitely will. The first one is the new beauty of Josean, Relief Sun Aqua Fresh Rise and B5. This is a Korean chemical SPF containing 5 advanced, very photostable filters, as well as 30% rice seed water and panthenol. It has an SPF of 50 and a PA rating of 4+. It feels incredibly light, sinks in beautifully. It is very easy to apply enough of. It is untinted, as you can see, so it doesn't give any coverage and leaves what I would call a semi-glowy finish. This is a beautiful SPF. As you can see, I have definitely been using it, and I have 3 more of these in my bathroom because I don't want to run out. Now, if you're familiar with the original beauty of Josean, the original is a bit more hydrating. So if you have really dry skin, you might prefer the original. If you have normal to oily skin, this is gorgeous. Now, as I mentioned, this is a Korean SPF. And since Korean SPFs use filters which are not FDA approved, it can be a bit challenging to find them in the US. Now, Beauty of Josean did come out with a US compliant version, for which they removed the advanced sun filters and replaced them with older FDA approved filters. The US version has a pink cap versus the Korean version has a blue cap. I purchase all my Korean SPFs on Stylevana, and of course I will list and link everything I'm talking about down below in the info box. But I purchase all my Korean SPFs on Stylevana, and this one, 1.7 ounces, sells for around $12. So the price is great as well. Next, I have another Korean SPF. This is the Madagascar Centella Probiotic Cica Glow Sun and Pure SPF 50 with a PA rating of 4+. This one again is a chemical SPF using 4 advanced, very photostable filters, as well as panthenol, niacinamide, and ceramides. This one feels beautiful as well, sinks in very nicely. It is easy to apply enough of. Again, as you can see, it is untinted, so it doesn't provide any coverage, but leaves a beautiful glow. This is quite a bit more hydrating than the new Beauty of Josean. So if you have dry skin, you might love this one. Again, 1.7 ounces, sells for around $12. Next, I have the Sente Even Tone Mineral SPF of 40. This contains 7.8% zinc oxide, 4.25% titanium dioxide, and iron oxides. It also contains Sente's proprietary heparan sulfate analog, which, according to them, supports calmer, more resilient skin and provides deep hydration. It has a beautiful texture, very light and silky. It sinks in beautifully. It's easy to apply enough of. It leaves, I would say, a semi-glowy finish with minimal coverage. The tint for my complexion is perfect, and I appreciate that it is water resistant for up to 40 minutes. This is newer to me, so I have not repurchased it yet, but I have really been enjoying it. The only thing I don't like about this SPF is the price. 1.7 ounces sells for $75. Next, I have an SPF I have repurchased I don't know how many times, and it is the Skinbetter Science Advanced Mineral SPF of 75. This contains 3.5% titanium dioxide, 10% zinc oxide, and iron oxides. It also contains plankton extract, which again is a DNA repair enzyme, as well as niacinamide, glycerin, and a bunch of antioxidants such as CoQ10. Honestly, the first time I used this, I hated it because it is very thick, and when first applied, it looks horrific. However, I have fallen in love with this SPF, and I have, like I said, repurchased it I don't know how many times, because now I really appreciate the thickness. It feels to me as if I'm applying a blanket of protection. It does take a little while to rub in, But once sunken in, while it starts out quite gray, the tint almost perfectly matches with my skin tone, and I just feel very protected when using this. So this is what I use when I go to the beach, or since it is also water resistant for up to 80 minutes when I work out. Like I said, I have repurchased this I don't know how many times, especially living here in San Diego, because I just really feel protected when using this. It is unfortunately not cheap. 1.7 ounces sells for $75. However, I always purchase this on Skin Beautiful RX. And with Skin Beautiful RX, we always get 20%, which helps. And then lastly, an SPF I have repurchased numerous times as well is the Tower 28 SOS Faceguard Broad Spectrum SPF of 30. This contains 12.5% non-nano zinc oxide as well as iron oxides. It also contains a ceramide blend, elatonin, and alpha-bisabol. It has a very light, almost fluffy feeling like consistency. It sinks in nicely. It is easy to apply enough of. It leaves a beautiful glow and provides, I would say, minimal to no coverage. 1.7 ounces sells for $28. So these are all the SPFs I have tested so far this year. I hope this video was helpful, and I hope that one of these will work for you. If you have tried any of these, please share experience down below in the comments. I can barely talk anymore. Please don't forget to check out Tamara's video and see which SPFs she tested. Any questions or comments, please leave them down below. Always love to hear from you. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time, bye.